It's been such a struggle trying to get this filmed today. I almost gave up, but I'm trying so hard not to give up. Welcome back to my channel. I'm Patricia Rose, and today my special guest is Samson, my son. He's almost 6 months old. He's actually very grouchy and very tired. Hopefully he'll doze off while I'm rambling. I know he's capable of that, so here you go. Sammy is actually the subject of today's video. I am finally sitting down to chat about my pregnancy, labor, delivery, birth story experience. This is something I wanted to open up about, not because it was magical. Well, it was, because having babies, it is magical. But it was actually a very, very challenging time for me. I dealt with a lot of unforeseen circumstances in that pregnancy that created all these potential negative outcomes that were just looming over me. That entire pregnancy, I couldn't be certain that Sam would make it out okay, that I would successfully finish the pregnancy, and that he would be a healthy baby. All throughout my pregnancy with Sam, I was so desperate for some type of comfort or reassurance, and I couldn't be given that. It was just very eerie. So today I'm going to talk to you about my experiences with severe nausea, pregnancy anemia, a Listeria exposure, also having the condition of Velamentous cord insertion during the pregnancy, baby measuring small, having a fall on stairs in my 3rd trimester, and ultimately having an emergency induction due to low fluid. Just to finish off strong. I have a very intentional purpose of creating this video, and that is not to feel sorry for myself. That is not to relive the trauma. It's not to claim I had it worse than anybody or anything like that. The purpose of this video, ironically, even though I'm talking about such a stressful time, is to help and to encourage. Like any other thing that I share where I am opening up and being very vulnerable about my personal life or my personal feelings and experiences, my intention of putting my heart and my experience out there is to help and to connect with others, help someone who may have been in a situation like I was in, going through this and feeling incredibly alone and feeling very just doubtful and just needing to see the proof that things could be okay, even if it really seemed like they weren't going to be okay. So me and Sammy are showing up today for you to let you know that things are gonna be okay. Things can be okay, even if you feel like you're literally under attack, if you feel like you're just going through an incredibly difficult pregnancy, if you're dealing with one or more of the circumstances that I dealt with. I feel very sensitive about pushing religion on anyone, and that's not my intention either. But I truly felt called to deepen my faith during my pregnancy with Samson because I had to rely on and trust God, and I fully believe that that is why we're both here today and why things are okay. The experience was really stressful and really scary to go through. And if you're watching this and you're currently pregnant, mama, I want you to be honest with yourself about where you're at mentally and if you're ready to hear a stressful story or if that's going to pile on to stress you may already have. Again, my intention is not to stress you out. My intention is not to scare you. I want you to focus on the point that here we are, we're good. Samson is literally such a healthy, beautiful baby. And here we are 6 months later. He is still the most perfect baby, and God has taken such good care of us. So if you're also having a challenging pregnancy, hugs, mama. Big, big, big hugs, okay? This video is gonna be a sit down, chatty video. It might be kind of long, knowing me. So what I want you to do is go get some water, go get some tea, go get some hot cocoa, go get some coffee, get a snack, kick back, and just be mentally prepared that it's a long chatty video. Or if you've got some chores to work on, if you have some things to do, pop in your headphones and I will tell you the story of my pregnancy and childbirth. We are going all the way back to the beginning. How did I know I was pregnant? So just for context, this is my 2nd pregnancy and my 2nd child. I also have an older son. His name is Benjamin, and he was 7 years old at the time of me having Sam. I say that to say these pregnancies were completely different. And because of that, I thought Sam was going to be a girl, but that's neither here nor there. He is also a boy. Also, for context, I had gotten off of the Mirena IUD 6 months prior to finding out I was pregnant. That is one thing that was the same with both of my pregnancies, is it took me about 6 months to get pregnant without birth control. So in December of 2022, I started exhibiting symptoms. And they weren't the typical symptoms that you look out for, where you're feeling queasy or you're vomiting or just simply missing a period. No, I felt like I got hit by a truck. For me, the first onset, the first sign that something was up was that I had the most severe body aches. It was beyond what I felt when I had COVID. And because of that, I thought I was getting COVID or some sort of virus or some sort of flu, because my body, my arms, my legs, my low back, especially my legs and my low back, like my lower body, was so sore, so achy, and so much pain that I spent several days just laying in bed, propped up with all types of pillows between my knees, under my back, and I was taking ungodly amounts of pain reliever. After the body aches kind of weared off a little bit, I still felt pretty sickly. I was feeling very fatigued, and then I did start to feel a bit nauseated, kind of just in general having tummy issues. Towards the end of December, I started thinking, when was my cycle supposed to be? I started to be suspicious that I was going to miss a cycle, or I had already missed a cycle, or it kind of dawned on me that it had been a while since I had a cycle. Now, because I had gotten off of the IUD 6 months earlier, my periods were pretty inconsistent and irregular, so they were not predictable. I wasn't able to pinpoint when I missed a period. I just had a feeling that I was missing a period, that I was due for one or missed one. I started to put 2 and 2 together, and at the end of December, I was starting to be suspicious that I may be pregnant. So in January, on January 2nd, to be exact, I remember, I took a pregnancy test and it was positive. Both lines were there, very, very bold, and my partner actually wanted me to take a second test before he believed it. I was so annoyed by that, because when do you ever get a false positive pregnancy test? Come on. But nonetheless, the second test, you guessed it, I was very, very pregnant, and it was very clear from the result on the test. So by the time I went to the doctor shortly thereafter to confirm the pregnancy, I was already about 9 weeks along. So I missed 2 periods by the time that I got to the doctor, by the time I tested and realized, which is okay. What was nice about that being 9 weeks along was I was able to hear his heartbeat right away. They gave me my due date for the end of August that year, which seemed so quick because it was like the beginning of the year, January. You're just starting a new year, you know, and then it's like, okay, you're having a baby this year by the end of summer. And I just didn't feel like I had any time to prepare. I was like, oh my gosh, that's gonna come quickly. And it did. So then began the pregnancy. I had very, very severe nausea all throughout my first trimester, well into my second trimester. Didn't really stop till about mid-second trimester, which would be an unusual case. The nausea was actually so bad in my first trimester that I was having trouble gaining weight or even holding down food. In my first few doctor's appointments, I had things put into my chart like underweight pregnancy, and they had just kind of expressed some concern for that. It was beyond that average inconvenience, like, oh, just take some B5 and eat some saltine crackers. Like, no, I was trying to take 3 bites out of an apple in the morning and projectile vomiting minutes later. Like, it was terrible. So after complaining to my doctor for a few appointments, seeing that there wasn't progress with weight gain, she prescribed me a medication for nausea. And all the nausea medication did, which I'm grateful it did because it actually made all the difference, was it took the edge off of my nausea so that I was able to eat like small snacks at a time during those times of day where I would normally not be able to eat or hold anything down. So it allowed me to have, you know, a little something for breakfast, a little something for lunch, a little something in the evening, because I had this very small window of time, like that awkward time between lunch and dinner, when I was actually like feeling my hunger and able to eat food. But the rest of the day, the top and bottom of the day when you'd normally eat those main meals, I was sick to my stomach, nauseous. But again, I had my nausea in pregnancy and very intensely, if it wasn't medicated, up to about 22 weeks. That was when I could actually be like, you know what, that part's behind me. I don't feel like that anymore. So that was very hard to live day in and day out like that, in this state of feeling like I had the flu for months. Another issue that had come up was I discovered I had pregnancy anemia, which is actually very common in pregnancy, I realized. I did not have it with my first son. I had like the ideal pregnancy with my first son. We discovered I had anemia because I went to the doctor and I was explaining to my doctor how I had been getting ready for that appointment that day, and how I was exhausted in the shower. Just holding my arms above my head to wash my hair was completely exhausting me. I couldn't even hold my arms above my head to wash my hair. And I was telling her how I had been sitting down like in the tub when I take showers because I was just feeling so incredibly weak. And she asked me some more questions, and I explained to her how, oh yeah, and recently I was putting on lotion in the bathroom and I was putting it on my leg, and I kind of checked out for a second and came back just in time to like put my hands out on the wall because I was starting to fall. So I was starting to like black out and faint. And at that point she was like, whoa, that's definitely not normal. I was doing this thing that I think a lot of women do where they, with pregnancy, it's like everything is a symptom, right? And it's like everybody's had it worse than you. And so you always just like, you know what, I'm okay. This is just, you know, I'm just pregnant. I'm just feeling weak because I'm pregnant, and I'm just feeling sick because I'm pregnant. But you really need to be in tune with yourself, and you really need to raise all these complaints with your doctor, especially if it's impacting your ability to just do like daily activities. And for me, it was, you could have something more wrong, and you want that to be addressed and cared for. So as she was asking questions and I was explaining to her the extent of the weakness and the sickness I was experiencing, that's what helped me get the nausea medication, and that's what helped her realize that we just needed to test my iron levels, which I think that they were going to do at some point during pregnancy anyway, but that prompted her to do it right away on the spot when I was telling her that, and they were low. I was anemic. So we started me on iron supplements. I do not recommend those. Also, I'm not making this video to give recommendations for or against, but I'm just going to say, like, friend, those iron supplements suck. The constipation and the digestive issues it gave me was arguably worse than the anemia itself. They didn't work either. My system was not absorbing them, and they were also making me throw up more. So I was barely holding them down. So fast forward several weeks later, we realized they weren't absorbing, and ultimately the solution to my pregnancy anemia was I ended up having an iron transfusion. So that's where you go in for an appointment and they have the bag of iron, and it looks like Pepsi or Coca-Cola. It's like this dark liquid, and you just sit there with an IV and they just pump your body full of it. And it takes a couple of days after for it to fully absorb, but it helped. It gave my body something that it was missing, and a few days later I was feeling better. I was having an energy level that was at least recognizable. It wasn't prime, it wasn't optimum, it wasn't the best, you know, I was still very pregnant and tired, but it was something I could work with and participate in my daily life with again. Unfortunately, due to the pregnancy nausea and the weakness, the fatigue, on top of, you know, like other stressors, I had some personal things going on too, but my anxiety was very, very high too. I'm normally an anxious person, but it really spiked during pregnancy to the point where I would have times where I was on the verge of having an anxiety attack. And I was taking morning classes. What was really difficult for me was going through one of my most nauseous periods of the day, trying to get up, get ready, drive to school. There was times where I would be driving and feeling like I need to pull over because I was feeling like I was gonna throw up. Getting to class, battling that sensation of like, I'm gonna throw up. And then I would be so self-conscious of that during class. I would be just spiraling in anxiety. I remember I wouldn't be able to hear the teacher speaking because my anxiety was so bad that all I could hear was like my heart pounding through my ears, my mouth was watering, my back was breaking out in sweat. I was just feeling like I'm gonna throw up, I'm gonna have an anxiety attack. It was just terrible. I fell so far behind between missing classes altogether when I was too sick to even get there, to getting there and not being able to take in the information because I was going through such a hard time physically and mentally. I ended up having to withdraw early from my classes. That hit my mental health and self-esteem really hard because I'm the type of person that I just took that to heart. I was very hard on myself, and even though it was not feasible for me to catch up and pass those classes at that point, and it was really something I had to do, was withdraw from my health and well-being, it just kind of added to my plate of how much of a hard time I was having and how I viewed myself. That's just to set the scene for my first and second trimester. In my second trimester, a ray of light that was coming up that I was excited about was my anatomy scan, because I wanted to know if I was having a baby boy or if I was having a baby girl. I was very excited about that. The anatomy scan actually went well. I believe it's normal for the radiologist, not the radiologist, something else that they're called, I'm sorry. It's a specific doctor for that anatomy, you know, like the fetal radiologist person. I'm sorry, I know that's not the right term. The doctor came in after my scan, and I could just tell that something was up. There was something unusual. His demeanor was like a little nervous, almost as if he was bracing himself to have a conversation with me. So that made me nervous. He told me that, you know, started out that the baby looks good, everything looks good, which I was very happy to hear. And then he let me know that I do have Velamentous cord insertion. Velamentous cord insertion, or VCI. Again, I'm not a medical professional, you guys, so I'm just gonna describe this the best way I know how, as I understood it. Your placenta inside is like the life force for the baby. Your placenta gives them blood, oxygen, nutrients, what you eat that goes to the baby. That is your connection from mother to baby during your pregnancy that keeps them alive, keeps them healthy, delivers every single thing that they need. That is the vital connection between mom and baby. And the placenta is usually like firmly attached somewhere in the middle. It's like this round thing. I'm not gonna pop up any graphic pictures, although I might find some not graphic, like regular diagrams to pop up. And then that cord, that strong cord and that connection goes to baby's belly button, and that's the umbilical cord, and that's what they cut when baby comes out, because then they have access to like oxygen and milk and whatnot, so they cut the cord when baby's born. So he explained to me that I had Velamentous cord insertion, and what that meant was baby's umbilical cord and the cord did not have a strong connection, a traditional normal connection to my placenta. It was actually just connected to like some tissue and webbing around my placenta, but wasn't actually firmly directly connected to it. I need to pop up some pictures so that you understand. Essentially, baby did not have as strong of a connection to the placenta, and connection that they did have could be interpreted as somewhat fragile when it comes to child labor, how contractions are really intense. It could pop those blood vessels and it could loosen or affect that tissue that keeps them connected to me, which the outcome of that becoming disconnected while they're still in my body could be fatal. And so that was pretty scary to hear. Maybe editing Patricia will come in here and let you know like the statistics and whatnot, but from what I understood was that this condition, generally speaking, is rare, but it's not so rare that like the labor and delivery doctors didn't know what it was or didn't know their way around it. Some more than others, but it wasn't completely unheard of. What he had told me in the ways that this condition could affect me or baby was that I would just have to be more closely monitored during labor, and that's also another effect that Velamentous cord insertion could have, just due to the nature of it. Baby could be smaller because of the way that they're connected to my placenta, and that may impact their ability to like fully get as much nutrients as they normally would. Now in retrospect, I think I misunderstood it, but in my mind, I was thinking that the connection was very fragile. Later in the pregnancy, doctors corrected me and said, no, it doesn't mean it was fragile. It's really just something that comes into play during labor. But it was just kind of a worry in my mind mind because the worst things that it could cause, I wouldn't know if it was going to cause it until the very end, until the day I was having him and going through childbirth. And there was this element of, is this condition going to cause a complication when I have him? And is he gonna make it? Is he gonna be okay? Is my care team going to be diligent in caring for me during childbirth and catching it if something is wrong, monitoring him? That was a concern. Now, moving on to my Listeria exposure. Listeria is a bacterial, it's either a bacterial virus or infection of something like that you can actually get from like unpasteurized cheese or meat. It's the reason why you're not supposed to have lunch meat or cold cuts during pregnancy, or like soft cheeses, which I did not have and still got an exposure anyway. Listeria can turn a healthy pregnancy into an absolute tragedy. So I don't really even want to go into detail. I wanted to avoid Listeria, obviously, and I was being very careful. And I did not have any of those like red flag foods you're not supposed to have during pregnancy. So you can imagine the shock and terror and stress that went through me when I got a call. It was an automated call from Target, which I shop at all the time. It let me know that my phone number was associated with a customer profile who had purchased something, a food that had been recalled for Listeria exposure. And this was when I was already 5 or 6 months pregnant. I looked into it and I realized that it was the frozen berries that I had been getting. It was like the Good and Gather berry. It's just like that store brand, and for Target, it's Good and Gather. Those were the berries I was using to have my fruit and yogurt smoothies, which is like one of my main ways of getting something in my stomach. I had a lot of those during my pregnancy up to that point. And I learned that it was those berries that I had bought several times. I don't know how many of the bags were affected, but at least one had been recalled for Listeria. So there was no way for me to know absolutely sure. I went through the freezer and I pulled out the bag that I had at that time, and the code did not match any of the recall codes. But then again, I knew there was at least 3 or 4 bags that I had already gone through of these berries that were already thrown away, and I could not verify, but you know, they did call and said that I purchased one. So add that to my plate, that I may have exposed my baby to Listeria. So I notified my doctor's office immediately, and it was another one of those eerie things where they couldn't confirm or deny that I had Listeria, and if or when that might affect my baby or my pregnancy. It was one of those things where the doctor told me I could go my entire pregnancy assuming everything is normal and then have a stillbirth baby, or have a baby with severe developmental delays or other issues, that I could randomly miscarry at any point. It was absolutely horrible. They said the best they could do was test my blood and see if I had antibodies for Listeria, which would indicate that I've come in contact with it. And beyond that, I could go ahead and voluntarily just take the antibiotics that they would give to someone who's been exposed to Listeria. Not that they would really do anything major, but I mean, that's all they could like throw at it, is what they said to me. I decided to take the blood test. Before I even had the results of the blood test, I went ahead and decided to take the antibiotics because I just wanted to do everything in my power to protect baby. And they were telling me that even the blood test was uncertain. If it came back negative, that I could still have been exposed, and like I couldn't get a sure answer. I couldn't get reassurance anywhere. I couldn't shake off this possibility of like a doomsday ahead, which was kind of the theme of my pregnancy. I went along the rest of my pregnancy just praying and hoping that Listeria wasn't something that would ever come up again. I was just praying that we had dodged that. I'll either put the website in the caption or I'll put it on screen or something, but if you're pregnant, I highly advise you to sign up for the emails when food is recalled, because you would be surprised Hummus is another thing I really enjoyed when I was pregnant, and hummus gets frequently recalled. You just want to be getting those alerts so that you know immediately to avoid or throw something out. You would be surprised. It's a lot of just normal stuff at the store gets recalled all the time, and depending on how bad it is, like I was contacted because it was Listeria, but sometimes it's other stuff that you would definitely want to know about, like foreign things being found in the food, and they just send out an email where most people aren't subscribed and most people aren't going to know, and they're going to finish whatever they bought, you know, they're going to eat it. So I would recommend, just, I guess pregnant or not, I would recommend getting signed up for the food recalls so that you understand what food at your grocery store has been affected. So that happened. At this point, I knew Sam was a boy. I remember I had an ultrasound where they said my fluid was high, and then I had an ultrasound weeks later where they said the fluid went back to normal. He started to measure small. My doctor was telling me not to worry because he wasn't so small that they were like super concerned, but they were just taking into account that I had the Velamentous cord insertion, and it was one of those things where they were just letting me know, like, hey, we're keeping an eye on this, don't panic, but he is measuring small. I also was having kind of like low fluid, and so towards the very end of my pregnancy, I just didn't feel like my belly was getting any bigger, my bump was getting any bigger. It was really hard for me when random strangers would tell me I don't look as far along as I am, or they would tell me my bump looks small, because it would trigger up the fact that I was dealing with these conditions and these concerns about my baby's size and my fluid levels. And that's why I make a point to say, don't comment. I mentioned this on my Instagram story, so if you're here for round 2, I'm back to say it again. Don't comment on a pregnant woman's body. You're not her doctor. You don't understand her circumstances. You don't know what she's dealing with. You don't know why she's showing the way she is. You don't know why her body is presenting the way that it is. And you making some sort of ignorant comments is not helpful. I don't care if you're also a mom and you've had 10 babies and they were all different and you've had all these experiences under your belt. You don't know anything about the next woman's pregnancy. You may have had your own experiences, but you do not know another woman's experience as intimately as she does and her doctor does. So don't comment on it as if you have all the information, okay? Just tell her she's beautiful and she's glowing and move on, and offer to help her with something. Just had to put that in there. So towards the end of the pregnancy, that was kind of a concern as well, was his size. So here I am, I'm like, man, you know, I'm almost to the end. This pregnancy has been absolute hell. And I'm going up the stairs. I live up 3 flights of stairs, no elevator. And I have like a drink in my hand, and I have a bag. I had just gotten back from running errands, and my sandal caught the stair and I fell forward, like belly down. I fell forward on the stairs. I threw my drink out of my hand to free my hand because my hands were both full, occupied. I splattered my drink all over the stairs to just free my hand really quickly in order to get that hand out in front of me and stop myself from landing belly first into the stairs, which, thank God, I was able to do that. I was incredibly shaken up. I was so scared. I did like scuff my knee and scuff my hand, but it all happened so fast. I didn't know if I had hit any part of my belly. I just like was so shaken up about it. I just did like the best I could and reacted. So I get inside and I'm like shaking and trembling. I was really worked up. I called my doctor. They immediately told me to go to the hospital and just monitor baby.
You awake now?
So I went to the hospital. We monitored baby for, I think the standard was 4 hours. And they said he was okay. They said from what they could see that it did not affect him. I went home. And at that point I wanted to just wrap myself in bubble wrap. I didn't want to go anywhere. What else could possibly happen to me? I just remembered this, but I also hit my head on a cabinet in the kitchen like the week before and like gashed my head, like my head was bleeding, and that was a week before that fall. So I was like, you know what, I don't want to do anything. So that brings us to the end of the pregnancy. I was 38 weeks 1 day. So at that point I was having my weekly doctor's appointments, and I expressed to my doctor that I just felt like my belly wasn't getting much bigger, and just in general, like I had a hunch that something might be going on. And she felt the same way looking at me, and she measured my belly and she said I was measuring a whole 4 weeks behind at that day. So she was a little concerned. She was so concerned that she got out like the in-office ultrasound, looked at him, and then she had that same demeanor as the doctor who told me I had velamentous cord insertion. She looked like she was bracing herself to tell me. She was amazing, but she knew how stressed out I was, and I could tell that she was bracing herself to tell me something stressful. So she was like, okay, what I want you to do is go straight to the hospital and let them monitor you and do a full ultrasound, because I'm not finding very much fluid in your belly at all. If you must stop home, just do it to pack a bag, but I need you to go to the hospital and see if we need to get him out sooner. So can you imagine how I'm feeling? Everything was so compiled. I was like, keep it together, don't have a mental breakdown. I remember my partner he does these Zoom meetings all day for work. I called him 2 minutes before he got into his next long one, and I said, you're not getting into that Zoom meeting, okay? You're taking the rest of the day off because we're going to the hospital. We might have a baby, we might have an induction. Either way, I need your support. We have concerns about the baby. So we got our older son ready. We got him over to my mother-in-law's. I raced home. We packed a quick bag, and I got a call when I was pulling into the driveway from my doctor's office to let me know that the hospital I had registered to deliver at, that I wanted to deliver at, was on divert, which means they were so full that they didn't advise any more patients come in. And I had to go to the hospital that I did not want to go to, that I had historically heard was not a good place to be cared for. So they said, you need to go to this hospital you don't want to go to, and that's where you may end up having an emergency induction. That was like, oh great. Whoo child. We were there for like 7 hours being monitored. We finally, they were doing all the shift changes and everything. We wanted to know if we could go home or not. We wanted to talk to a doctor. I had this really long ultrasound with one of the techs at the hospital, just looking at the baby from every angle and measuring everything. Then the doctor on call comes in to see us, and she lets us know that the fluid is really low. It was like right on the line that if we were insistent on going home, that she would have us come back right away in the morning to check it again. But she was saying that it was her recommendation that we stayed and just had the induction that night because it was that low. And so began my birth story. The way that they induced me is that they had a Cook's balloon, which is like that balloon thing that they insert and then it like expands. It's like a physical induction, like it opens up your cervix to dilate. So I had that all night and it was so painful. I also forgot to say, but in the days leading up to this doctor appointment, I felt like I was in early labor. Like I just knew. I knew I was having this baby early. I actually had a brand deal that I needed to film, and I filmed it like within the 48 hours that I had him, before I had him, because I knew. But I was already having like early labor symptoms. I was already having contractions like every 30 minutes or so, like on a consistent basis. Sometimes they would get down to like 5 minutes apart, but they wouldn't stay 5 minutes apart long enough to go to the hospital. So I was already kind of in like early labor. In the morning, I want to say it was at like 3 centimeters dilated. They allowed me to have like breakfast and get ready for the big day because they were actually going to start me on Pitocin, which was also something I said no to in my birth plan. But look, if there's anything you should know as a pregnant mom, it's just that like nothing goes as planned. Just be very flexible. You need to have a good care team because you need to trust your care team. They started me on Pitocin at about 11 a.m. that day. I want to say I had a chance to take a quick shower and eat. I had an amazing nurse who understood how important both of those things were to me, and she ensured that I was able to do that before the party got started. Then we started on Pitocin. I bounced on the ball. I did not have pain reliever. I started out, I did not want pain meds, and then I wanted pain meds, and she kept me true to my goal, and she helped me push through it without any pain meds. So I had, Pitocin is no joke, you guys. That was absolutely insane, but I like manually, naturally labored through all of that and had him unmedicated. I had some extra bleeding after I had him. I remember they had to give me some type of medication to slow down the bleeding after he was born. I was so like, I had baby on me. I was doing skin to skin. I was, you know, I had just went through such a traumatic experience. I wasn't really paying attention, but I could tell that they were kind of like, things were getting intense for them and facilitating, making sure that they could slow down my bleeding, but they did. I remember there was some concerns about getting all the pieces of my placenta out because it kind of came out rough and jaggedy, you know, like because of the Velamentous cord insertion. Baby was monitored the entire time. Nurses were on it. I just made sure I communicated, but they were really great. They surprised me. The whole hospital staff surprised me in how well I was taken care of. I actually had more of a personable, caring, compassionate experience than I had with my first son at the hospital I wanted to go to this time. So I think God just really showed out for me, and I pushed for, I want to say it was either 15 or 17 minutes total. He was exactly 6 pounds. I didn't tear at all. Like I said, other than the bleeding and just her having to kind of, it was uncomfortable. She had to kind of feel around and scoop out like bits and pieces of placenta, and there was just some concern that it was all gone. They did something to check. Once that was resolved, that was it. He was a beautiful, healthy baby. We left the hospital right at the 24 hours after birthmark, which is the soonest they'll allow you to go home for a vaginal birth. He didn't need any other observation or any other tests. He passed all of his tests and observations like with flying colors. So, and he is so strong. So strong, it's so handsome, it's so perfect. Yes, he is. I just knew when I was pregnant with him that he is so strong. Like, he is a little warrior. He's a tough guy. We made it. We're on the other side of it now, you guys. I think it really just showed me like what I'm capable of, what God is capable of, the importance of keeping faith and trying to keep your stress at bay, trying to lean into faith if you're having a challenging pregnancy, and know that everything is happening according to God's plan. Something really sweet that my big sister said when I was pregnant was that after I called her from the ultrasound, when I realized I had the Velamentous cord insertion, I called her crying after that ultrasound. And something really sweet she told me was that she knew he was fine because she's already held him, because she had a dream that she held him, but she was just letting me know like God already created, he's already here. It's already been done. Everything's going according to his plan. He is okay. I just need to go through the experience faithfully. And that's really just the sentiment that I tried to lean into that whole time. And we made it, and I love him so much, and we have such a special bond. I want you to know that things are gonna be okay, Mama. I want to give you a hug. Thank you so much for watching and for listening. Let me know what your pregnancy experience or experiences in the past have been like in the comments. Please like this video, leave me a comment. It really, really helps my channel. My channel is full of all sorts of aspects of who I am. Everything from beauty to family to real life, like that's kind of my vibe. No matter what you're going through and where you're at, I just want to send you so much love and wish you the best of luck and remind you that everything's going to be okay and you are not alone. Thanks so much for watching. I hope to see you in my next video.